in beautiful Fresno, California. We've had a wonderful time here. So may I have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Alvarado. Commissioner Semi.
Here.
Commissioner Burke. Commissioner Art.
Here.
Commissioner Cromer. Commissioner Gilmetti.
Present.
Commissioner Gardino. Commissioner Hinman.
Here.
Participants on the call, including you,
Commissioner Medalper.
joining your conference as the host. For a menu of available commands, press *#.
Commissioner Tavaloni.
Commissioner Tavaloni is on the phone. Welcome.
Chair Dunn.
And Chair Dunn is here. And there's one more person on the phone? Not yet. Okay, good. So we,
Quorum.
thank you very much. So we begin with approval for the minutes for March 26.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Gilmetti, second by Mr. Semi. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We have teleconference locations for Commissioner Tavaloni in Riverside County at the Riverside County Transportation Commission offices. The address is listed on the agenda. We will be joined at 9:45 by Commissioner Guardino. He is speaking from the Silicon Valley Leadership Group offices in San Jose. The address is also listed on the agenda. A couple of points. I wanted to tell folks about some activities that occurred with the Transportation Commission over the past couple of weeks that I think were quite noteworthy. We had a legislative breakfast on the 21st of May in Sacramento. We invited a group of Transportation Committee members and leaders to attend to have a conversation with the Transportation Commission at the Sheraton Grand Hotel in Sacramento. It was a very good discussion. We had excellent attendance. We had more than 14 legislators either present or represented, and they stayed throughout the entire breakfast for the most part, and the conversation was, I thought, very good given all of the issues that we're facing in the legislature. We also had a public forum in this building yesterday, the first of 7 that we're planning around the state. Very good participation, good media coverage, had a number of elected officials here, and I think we had a good conversation describing what's going on in Sacramento, the condition of our roads, the needs. We co-hosted this event with business leaders from the community as well as some of the regional transportation planning agencies in the San Joaquin Valley. And our next forum will be held in the Sacramento area. We don't have a date set yet, but it will be announced soon. I wanted to also announce, Commissioners, that we have hired an office technician at the California Transportation Commission. Her name is Karen Clavel. She joined the Commission on May 4th of this month and has a certificate from Solano Community College in Business Administration and Business Communications. She most recently worked at the Board of Equalization as an office assistant in the tax program. And she also has some administrative assistant experience working for the Solano County Health Services. Very pleasant. Hope you'll have a chance to meet her soon. The final item I have, Madam Chair, is the 2016 meeting calendar, which is located under tab 3 in your books. I do want to put this off if we can. We've had a number of discussions subsequent to putting the agenda item on this meeting calendar. There's been a number of suggestions about how we might reconsider some things, and there's been an expression of as sort of a request from our legislative members. Is there any way that we might be able to adjust the dates to make it easier for them to attend these meetings? So we want to work on this a little bit more, and I would like to bring this back to you at the June meeting.
With no objection? That's great.
Is that going to be up for discussion in June, or we're going to have the discussion before? Because several of us will be gone.
We will have a discussion with the commissioners before.
Okay.
It will be up for adoption in June.
Any other questions for Mr. Kempton? Great. Moving on, commission reports. Yes, Mr. Seaman.
Madam Chair, I had a brief visit with Congressman Jeff Denham earlier in the week about the future of a funding bill, and he was sharing with me that there's a lot of activity, at least on the House Republican side, for a 5-year fully funded bill with several potential new funding sources. Two of the items they're looking at is repatriating U.S. assets in overseas and bringing those funds back to the U.S. and looking at a tax between a 5 to a 15% tax, where those funds can then be used for as an infrastructure bank to be used for infrastructure and transportation funds and projects going forward. The other item they're looking at is additional onshore oil wells in the Alaskan region, and using royalties from a dollar amount of royalty per barrel of oil, and using those funds for additional highway funds. And they're hoping to get a permanent 5-year bill through by October of this year. That ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Any other commission reports? Very good. Moving on, commissioners' meetings for compensation. I notice we have 2 memos, both dated May 28. Looking for a motion?
I move we be compensated.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Arp, seconded by Mr. Gilmedi. Any objection? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. California State Transportation Agency report by Agency Secretary. Welcome. Not here.
Empty chair.
But instead, we have Caltrans Director Malcolm Doherty. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I can provide the Caltrans update and then defer to Secretary Kelly when he's available. First, I want to thank Chair Dunn as well as Commissioner Inman and Executive Director Will Kempton for attending our 2015 Workers' Memorial back in April 16th. The highlight of that memorial service was that we added no new cones because we had no fatalities over the past year. That's the second time we've accomplished that since 2004, and our commitment at that ceremony was to repeat that safety record in the upcoming year and then in subsequent years. But it's a very moving memorial service to recognize the 183 Caltrans employees who have lost their lives since the 20s in the line of duty. So I wanted to express my appreciation for your participation in that event. I wanted to share with you that Bruce Roberts was selected as the new Chief Division of Rail and Mass Transportation Division at Caltrans. He will lead that division as it moves to implement rail and transit projects within the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. He will also be working to integrate the state-funded intercity passenger rail routes in California into the existing and new corridor joint powers agencies for the 3 intercity corridors. And he'll also be working in tandem with the High-Speed Rail Authority to address related multimodal transportation services to make sure that they are all integrated. I had the opportunity yesterday to attend a ribbon-cutting event down in the Inland Empire. The Bi-County HOV project on Interstate 215, a very successful 8 miles of additional HOV lanes on Interstate 215. Total cost of in the $180 million range. There was Proposition 1B funding on that. It was actually savings, CMI savings dollars. And that project not only added HOV lanes, improved several interchanges, and we used a very innovative approach for some of the bridge construction, advanced bridge construction, where they constructed the spans off-site and then moved them into place under a full closure, and that increases productivity for the contractor. It increases the safety of the construction team as well as the motoring public, and then also it has the least amount of impact on the motoring public from a construction standpoint. Tomorrow here in the Fresno Madera area, we will be doing a ribbon cutting ceremony on the bridge widening across the San Joaquin River, which is a 6-laning project. That project is fully funded by 99 bond Prop 1B, and it is on the original schedule that was committed to back when it was adopted in 2007. I will say this, it was a much larger project at that adoption point. We split the project, delivered the first piece of it, and opened it to traffic more than 2 years ago, and then we kept this more complicated piece, which was at the river crossing and the bridge design, on schedule. So we delivered a good portion of that project well ahead of schedule as well. So I wanted to share the completion of those projects with you, and there's been many more in the last couple of months. A quick update on the drought. Governor Brown proclaimed a second state of emergency in April, calling for a reduction of water consumption by 25% across the state. In 2014, because of several efforts that we took, we were able to reduce our water consumption by 32%. Our overall goal going forward next year is to reduce our water utilization by 50%. A significant portion of our water consumption is done in irrigating our landscape. Several strategies we are undertaking to try to accomplish that is just a general reduction in water use, the implementation of smart controllers, and then also utilization of recycled water whenever we can do that as well. So I will continue to keep you updated as we move forward with that. I look forward to the conversation, and I appreciate the working with your staff on the ITSP, the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan, as well as the California Transportation Plan 2040. It is on your agenda today. I will be departing on Saturday for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for the 25th Annual Intelligent Transportation Society annual meeting. I am on several panels over the short trip. One that I will note is a panel on the future of freight mobility and how technology will impact that industry. I will also be on panels for autonomous and connected vehicles. I'd be happy to report back on how that conference goes with your executive director, and he can share that with you. The last thing I'll say, and I'll defer the details to Federal Highway Representative Vince Mamano, but MAP 21, which was scheduled to expire at the end of May, has been extended through the end of July. I'll allow him to add any extra detail. But what that means to us is we still have a dilemma as far as funding now pushed back to the end of July. If nothing were done at the end of July and the federal bill were allowed to lapse, it would mean at that point we would probably and most likely stop advertising projects at that point. We can cash flow the federal government for a little while, but we would not get any overcommitted at that point. So if they don't do anything by the end of July, we would be in a position to halt advertising any federally funded projects. But for now, we will continue to advertise projects, and even at that point, we would continue to execute the projects that were already out in construction. So with that, Madam Chair, I will conclude my comments, be happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Commissioners, any questions? Malcolm, a quick question for me, just for perspective for the folks that might be watching. What percentage of our transportation funding is federal dollars?
Well, all the state dollars involved as well as local dollars. Federal dollars only make up about 25%, something in that range, of the projects going out. But they are included in many, many projects, and without them, they would create holes that would have to be backfilled.
And approximately, what's the dollar amount involved?
I'm going to look around the room to see if I...
For us,
Yeah,
3.5 billion.
$3.5 billion a year.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And so, coming forward to give us more detail, because I know he has all the details, is Mr. Mamano.
For everybody here, when you defer to somebody, don't tell them everything about it, and then say, I defer to Vince. So everything Malcolm just said is what I was about to say, so thanks for having me over.
More in-depth
Yeah,
analysis.
no, come on. No depth. Well, thank you. I'm a puddle when it comes to my depth. All right, so Malcolm, as Malcolm said earlier, so right now the president has not signed the bill. It's on his desk waiting to be signed from what I gather. It's a 2-year. The Secretary of Transportation sent out a letter to all the CEOs which pretty much said if we don't get something passed, then the program will be shut down. We won't even be able to pay the bills. So it's not just authorizing projects, but it's being able to pay bills on current ongoing projects. Remember the two different things, Highway Trust Fund and the authorizing legislation. So the trust fund and appropriations, or the trust fund pays the bills. The legislation allows us to authorize future projects. And those are two very important pieces to to a puzzle that I don't think everybody always gets. You hear a lot of people say things like, I heard the other day, somebody said, we've had 32 extensions of the Highway Trust Fund. And we haven't had 32 extensions of the Highway Trust Fund. We've had 32 extensions of the authorizing legislation. The Highway Trust Fund gets influx from the general fund 6, 7, 8 times, I think, over the last 10 years, I think. But that's an important piece. But that letter that went out to all the CEOs very clearly said, if we don't get something passed, then the program will shut down. We will not be able to pay the bills. We will not be able to do any of that stuff. So that's an important piece. So that was as of the end of May. As I look at everything, that same letter, if nothing happens, can go out at the end of July also, because it's going to be the exact same situation. The other piece to that is towards the end of July is when we're getting into where the Highway Trust Fund becomes a bigger issue. Excuse me. There's a $4 billion threshold in the Highway Trust Fund. When it gets under that, that's when the Federal Highway Administration takes measures. And measures are not paying all of the bills to the states, paying a portion of the bills. And, you know, we went through this last year on steps that the Federal Highway Administration will take to deal with the Highway Trust Fund. So that $4 billion threshold, they're expecting that to happen in the July, August timeframe is what I've gathered. So that's an important piece. So that's the legislation that's on the President's desk right now doesn't touch the trust fund. If there's going to be another extension, it's going to have to deal with the trust fund as well. So it's going to have some sort of an influx from the general fund or a long-term bill that's going to deal with how to fund transportation over the next 5, 6 years or however long that bill takes. So those are pretty important pieces that are out there right now. So we haven't heard yet on the signature of it, but I'm gathering that it's on his desk and everybody's agreed with it. So it seems like that's going to happen. So that's the biggie. Greg Netto, he is now officially our acting administrator. He's been acting kind of for the last over a year, but his name has been sent up to Congress to get confirmed as our official administrator. Jeff Pagnotti, who is our executive director, so he's our highest career federal highway guy. He is retiring in October, so that's a big hit to the agency. I know Malcolm had a great relationship with Jeff. He's been fantastic with the state, so he's given a lot of time, a lot of notice on this to allow us to get a good transition to bring somebody in to take that position. Malcolm and I, hopefully today, will be signing a new stewardship and oversight agreement between Federal Highway and Caltrans on our role and who has the oversight on locally administered projects, for instance, and all of our steps. So that's been a big lift for both Federal Highway and Caltrans. Been a lot of effort that went into it. And essentially that's Malcolm and my agreement on how we're going to work here in California. So that's kind of big. The kind of sad news for a bunch of us, not horrible sad, but Jermaine Hannon, our Director of Planning, or our Director of Program Development, has got a promotion, so he is going to be moving to Indiana as the Assistant Division Administrator in the Indiana Division, so that's pretty exciting for him. He's been a big part of, I think a lot of people here in this room know him. He's been a big help to a lot of the things we've done. The other two things I always like to talk about, I want to talk about the DBE program. I think we had a good run in the DBE. We're going real high. We had a little dip. I'd like to encourage everybody to make sure we're pushing, make sure we're looking at our goals on contracts, make sure we're challenging our goals on contracts. Our DBE program, there's no reason that California couldn't lead the nation in the DBE program, and right now we're not. And there's a lot, 60% of the federal dollars are in the locals. So we're asking the locals to make sure we're paying attention to our DBE program, make sure we're paying attention to the good faith effort that people are putting in if they don't meet the goals, and challenge those. And then the last thing I want to always talk about is the tribes in California. We have 108, 9, 10, 11, depending on which day you talk to us, federally recognized tribes here in California. And it's so important. I'm going up to Willits next week to deal with that project and work with Sherwood Valley Rancheria. up there, and we've worked with the Yurok tribe. They've been a great example of good partnering. The counties up there, working with the Yurok tribe and the area around that, have been fantastic relationships, but that's because people are making an effort to reach out and making sure the tribes are part of the decisions, not commenting on decisions. So that's something I want to continue to encourage, is find out where the tribes are in your area, reach out to them, bring them in, let them know way ahead of time what's going on, what you're thinking about. They can help you. The tribes can help you. They can be a part of the project. They should be a part of the project. So it's an important piece, I think, that we need to continue to remember. And they should be part of everything we do. So that's one of the things I like to draw attention to every time I speak, is the relationship that the tribes have here in California and the role that they have too. So, is there any questions for me? Yay. Oh.
We have a question from...
Oh, wait, I got one more thing before you ask a question. June 18th, local hiring preference. There's going to be a webinar for Federal Highway on local hiring preference. There's a pilot program, excuse me, Fran, I'm sorry. There's a pilot program that we're talking about for a year, and we need to work through Caltrans. So if any local wants to try and do something like that, they got to reach out to the Caltrans district office. But Federal Highway will be doing a webinar on June 18th discussing the local hiring preference, what the intent is, and some of the background to that. So I think that'd be a good meeting, and for the details of that, you can go to the Federal Highway website for that. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Fran.
Well, when you had one more thing to add, Vince, I
Freight,
knew
sorry.
for sure you were going to give us an update, but it's been a little quiet on the news from D.C. on the freight front, so can you give us an update?
I can't. I've been, sorry about that. Malcolm, you want to give him an update? You gave everybody an update earlier, but no, I actually brought that up to our leadership just to make them aware that that's been a concern out here. So it's on their radar. It's on Federal Highways leadership's radar, but that's the freight discussion is at the DOT level, so that's one level above the Federal Highway. But
Okay, well, keep asking.
You got it.
It's important for all of us.
right, we'll do. Anything else?
Thank you, Vince.
Hey.
Again, it's always just so disheartening that we can't do long-range transportation planning, and so many of our projects are, I mean, the seriousness of the fact that we can't get our federal dollars and our Congress to act, which traditionally has been a bipartisan issue on infrastructure funding. So
Right.
please, in all seriousness, extend our continued lament about the state of affairs.
Well, a lot of it's education. I don't think people understand the level, the magnitude, and all the pieces to that puzzle. And I think that's a big part of that. As people learn the pieces of the puzzle, they start to get a little bit better picture of it, because there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle.
Well, and it's why I like the fact to remind folks that we are videotaped and that folks are watching this commission meeting, so the more we can educate. And also to not say things like DB, but to explain what that is.
Disadvantaged Business
yeah,
Enterprise, that one?
exactly.
Sorry, my apologies. Disadvantaged Business, that's minorities in the workplace working on federal contracts.
I think that's very
Thank you.
helpful to help educate. Thank you.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thanks.
Vince. And I'd like to welcome this morning Secretary Brian Kelly. Appreciate your joining us, and an update for our folks.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. June is always budget time in Sacramento, at least particularly in the era of majority vote budgets. June is once again budget time in Sacramento, and not September or October. A couple of things I just wanted to report on. The Governor's May revise came out middle of May. There was some good news in there from a transportation funding perspective. Cap and trade dollars are estimated to be double what they were in the January proposal, and a good portion of that, high percentage of that, is going to transportation-related purposes. My agency is running a transportation grant, a public transit grant program that's paid for with the cap and trade dollars, and initially that program in January was set at $125 million. We're now on pace to have that program be $290 million just in the budget year. So it's a big increase, and we've received applications in April totaling about 31 projects with a value of about, well, their value is close to $1 billion, but they were requesting almost $500 million in revenue. So we now have an amount of cap and trade dollars that will help us I think, make a significant dent in the applications we've received. So I think that's a very good sign early on. The May revise also included the governor's call that the legislature, Republicans and Democrats, come together and develop a longer-term transportation funding plan. And there are various pieces of legislation floating around that include components of that. I think later this morning we'll be hearing, I saw something last night that suggests we'll be hearing from the Senate Republican leader on this matter today. And so those conversations are ongoing, and the administration is involved in talks with the legislative leadership with the hope of getting something done by the end of this legislative year. So those are the certainly the good news items. A couple of other things in June that I think are important. The first is there was legislation passed in 2012, SB 1779 and SB 1225. These were bills that had us transfer the administration of 2 of the 3 intercity rail programs from state administration to regional administration. For those more familiar with the Capital Corridor, that intercity program between Sacramento and the Bay Area, that's run by a local JPA or a regional JPA. And the proposals in the legislation that was signed in 12 called for the same thing for the San Joaquin's railroad system and the railroad line, and for the Pacific Surfliner in Southern California. So we're moving forward on the transfer agreements, and those are due by the end of June. So I just want to report that we're moving forward on those at the agency and are looking forward to finalizing those agreements with the regional JPAs to move the administration of those programs to regions.
That's great.
That's pretty much all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Olson.
Secretary Kelly, the additional cap and trade dollars, over $150 million, do we know how those funds are going to be dispersed, or in which silos? The additional cap and trade funds for transportation.
Yeah, well, they are subject to legislation that passed in a budget trailer bill last year, SB 862, and 60% of the dollars are continuously appropriated for specific purposes. I think 5% is for transit operating grants that come out of the Caltrans and go to transit operators on a formulaic basis. 10% is through the Transit Capital Grant Program that my agency is administering now, and we'll be working closely with CTC to allocate those funds. And then there's a set portion that also goes through the Strategic Growth Council to assist locals on adopting their regional growth plans and their housing and land use plans. So there'll be grants will be awarded to those as well. And there's 25% that is by statute designated to high-speed rail as well. So there's 60% in total is going to transportation or other growth, transit-oriented development and other growth programs by region. And those grants, both the Strategic Growth Council grants, the grants through my agency, the first round of grant funding is proposed to be awarded in June. So that'll be, that's coming up. We're working hard on evaluating the applications now, and those dollars will then move forward. Then there's 40% of the pot that's really going to various greenhouse gas reduction strategies that are outside of the transportation sector. So, thank you.
Secretary Kelly, are you aware there's been a little bit of an angst on the Strategic Growth Council's initial project selection? Or are we kind of helping to resolve some of those issues among the populations?
Yes, I have heard of angst.
Yes,
and,
angst. It was being diplomatic.
Yes, I know that there are some regions with the applications that came in were unhappy. Under that process, which was slightly unusual for a state grant process, there was an initial review and then an invitation for applications to come forward after an initial review of projects. And some regions, particularly I think in Southern California, felt like they didn't do well in that initial review process. I would just say that the disbursement of these type of funds for these type of projects is a first, and we're going to learn as we go. And so I know there's work going on through the Strategic Growth Council. That council is going to receive hundreds of millions more in revenues going forward, and there will be subsequent rounds. This is the first round. I think their first round totals something like $130 million. But they're poised to be receiving upwards of $400 million ongoing for those kinds of grants going forward. And we're going to learn a lot through this first round, and I think there's an openness to make sure that the whole idea of this grant program is to make sure the state is partnering well with regions in their regional growth strategies. And I think what we want to do is make sure that we should be doing that in cooperation and collaboration, and not in opposition. So I think folks are learning as we go, and I expect the subsequent rounds will see improvement. And so
Thank
what I
you.
can say about that. Sure.
Appreciate it very much. All right, no further questions. Thank you, Secretary Kelly.
Thank you.
We now move to Welcome to the Region, and I don't see Mayor...
Yes.
Oh, Ashley Swearingen is here, Tony Boren, Aaron Hakimi, welcome, and thank you for your welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Secretary Kelly, Director Kimpton, Director Doherty. Welcome to Fresno.
Yay.
I've done my job on the agenda. I have welcomed you. But if I may take just a few more minutes, I'd like to share a few things. First of all, we're very pleased to host this meeting, and as always, you're always welcome here. When you come to Fresno, I suspect you know a little bit about this city and this region, and let me go through a few of the things that we are always known for. First of all, our central location. Not far from here is the exact north-south, east-west middle of California. We've given ourselves the nickname as California's middle ground. We are the 5th largest city. We are a young, energetic, diverse, and fast-growing population in Fresno. In fact, among the fastest-growing regions in California. We are, of course, the food capital of the world, well known for the production agriculture that surrounds this major urban area, but perhaps lesser known for the value-added food manufacturing and the food and nutrition innovation that's happening here on the valley floor with over 150 food manufacturers in the city limits alone. And of course, we are very pleased to add to our list of titles the high-speed rail capital of the United States. Perhaps we are less known for a few things that I'd like to share with you. First of all, Fresno has one of the best commute times in the United States. Forbes magazine last year ranked Fresno 4th in the United States for the number of people who can get to their jobs in less than 20 minutes. And their cars actually move the whole time. Our commute times in Fresno are getting better, not worse, which is a rarity in California, thanks in large part to a traffic signal synchronization program that's been underway for nearly 2 decades now. We've reduced our travel times in Fresno by 18%. Fresno Area Express, which is our fixed route bus service in the city of Fresno, is one of the largest city-operated transit systems in the nation, with over 12 million riders every single year in our system. We're very pleased to be adding bus rapid transit in Fresno, and service will begin on that program in early 2017. We also boast one of the fastest growing airports on the West Coast. Fresno Yosemite International is growing at a rate of about 6% per year. The average on the West Coast is about 3% per year. And while every Fresnan would argue for even improved services out of Fresno Yosemite International, we do recognize the progress that our airport is making. We have the ambition of becoming a city of trails. We have a master plan that would link not just Fresno, but Fresno and Clovis through a trail system. We've made some progress. This next year, we'll add another 3 miles to our trail system in the city of Fresno. And as there has been much discussion and debate and leadership, certainly from the state of California and the CTC, on finding a way to link land use and transportation, we can say in the city of Fresno, we have officially adopted a general plan that does just that, adopted in December of last year, that connects through major transit corridors, older neighborhoods with newer neighborhoods, and focuses on the revitalization of our downtown. So we're very pleased with the progress that we've made to bring these two things together, and we feel as if we are leading the valley floor in making such improvements. Central to that, of course, is a revitalized downtown. We're very anxious to be breaking ground on the Fulton Mall reconstruction, which will break ground later this year, and we'll cut the ribbon on that completed project at the end of next year. That has been a Herculean effort to bring that project forward and would not have happened if it wasn't for the cooperation, certainly of the locals, the state, and the federal government. So these are among some of the things that I wanted to make sure you know about the place on the map in which you sit today. As far as requests of the California Transportation Commission goes, I wouldn't begin to be presumptuous in telling you things that I know you already know. It's important for the City of Fresno that you know we have confidence in your leadership, in your chair, in your staff leadership, and in the Brown administration. I will just underscore that in Fresno, we value big solutions and long-term thinking. I know that's exactly the type of leadership that you're trying to bring to the extremely difficult challenge of improving transportation systems in California. Please know that in Fresno, we promise not to knee-jerk. We promise to listen. We promise to look at data. And we promise to stand with you as you bring forward bold, positive solutions for transportation in California. I want to just close with one word about public-private partnerships and certainly communicate to you that we believe that has to be a part of the equation moving forward when it comes to large interregional transportation projects in the state, and we stand ready to help move those sorts of projects forward. With that, let me step aside and let others welcome you. But again, thank you for being in Fresno, and we look forward to a continued positive relationship with you.
Thank you, Mayor. We
Thank
very
you.
much appreciate you joining us this morning. So next up, Tony. Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm going to, building on the mayor's intro there, I'm going to highlight a project that we're very proud of here and speaks to why we are number 4 in the rankings in terms of commute times. This is a State Route 180 Brader Ramp project. I'm sure you guys must have seen this along the way. It was one of the finalists for the Tranny Awards last week in Sacramento. Malcolm was very involved in this project. He was here at District 6 at the time. Basically, we had a situation here, and this is facing towards the east, so if you guys were looking directly straight ahead, we had a situation where we have a 2-mile stretch of mainline freeway between our 41 and the 168 there to the farthest to the east, which had become a problem because we had weaving challenges, congestion in the morning, accidents, and so this is where it gets exciting. We identified the need for the project. Again, it was a 2-mile stretch. Now, when Caltrans originally built the 180, they knew that we were going to encounter this problem at some point in time. Unfortunately, we didn't have the money to design it and build it at that time, but we did have the foresight to set aside the right-of-way. Right? So we basically we're good to go in that respect. In terms of project need, we had the volumes, increased volumes, congestion, more accidents. In terms of the purpose, improve traffic, reduce congestion, enhance safety. What the project consisted of in terms of actual structures: 2 new structures, connector ramps. We widened the surface street, First Street, ramp meters to some of our surface streets, and then connector meters for both the east and westbound 180. Total project budget, $66.7 million. Funding sources, the majority of that came from the SHOP program. Our Measure C, our half-cent sales tax, raised about $2 million, and we have a mitigation fee, a regional mitigation fee that raised about $9.7 million. Again, this was one of the pilot projects that Caltrans undertook. Again, you can see you're very familiar with the design-build concept. The most important bullet point is that one at the end where it talks about we were able to advance it 12 months ahead of the original schedule. I think this right here says it all in terms of the timeline. From the time the PSR was approved to the actual contract being accepted, we were actually driving on it in March 2014, so less than 5 years for that process, for that entire project to be planned, designed, and constructed. So again, these are just some more of the construction photos. But my point here that I want to make this morning is that this is the latest in over $1 billion. Now we're approaching $1.5 billion in freeway highway projects that we've constructed here in Fresno County over the last 25, 30 years. It's been a partnership between the COG, the Transportation Authority, the CTC, Caltrans. Everyone's been instrumental. But my point is that we know what to do with these dollars when we get them. So this is all just a little bit of a setup for what's next, which is this. Our next project is our State Route 180 East project, which is on the east side of Fresno County. It's intended to provide connectivity to our national parks and our east side communities. This is the 5th in a series of 180 East projects. I think in the last 6 years, you can see we've knocked each one of those out one by one. So again, what I want to emphasize is that we know what to do with our dollars and how to make efficient use of them. Again, this is a 4.5 mile project. It's a 4-lane divided expressway. Total project cost $49.5 million. That's Measure C and STIP funds. And this is where the kicker is right here, and why I'm here basically. This is all just a setup to let you know that that project is programmed for construction funding in 16, 17 in the STIP, but we are ready to construct right now. So we are going to be coming before you here, I think it's in August, and requesting a advance of the construction funding to 15, 16. So I hope that you will give us due consideration when we come before you. But again, we just want to highlight that we enjoy our partnership. We've done a lot of good things together, and we look forward to working together in the future. So I'm going to stop right there, turn it over to Aaron here, and he's going to speak to some valley-wide issues.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Secretary Kelly, Malcolm, and Will. I'll be very brief with you this morning. I'm here to talk to you about the region. Many of you know I'm from Kern County, but I'm the chairman of the COG directors for the group from Stockton all the way to Bakersfield. I won't read these slides to you. I'll just talk about a few highlights. San Joaquin Valley is a very, very large area. You can see the counties that it consists of, 62 incorporated cities. What's important to us and why we are so closely linked is we are one air basin. About 11% of the state's population lives in the San Joaquin Valley, and we're projected to grow to about 18% of the state's population. And we're growing significantly faster than the rest of the state. Again, a very large area, 30,000 plus miles of roads in the San Joaquin Valley. Many of you heard yesterday about one of our biggest strengths, and that's agricultural production. And many of you know agricultural products have to get to market, and they get to market on roads. Something that I'm not real proud of is our unemployment rate and our poverty rate, and you can see it there, significantly higher than the rest of the state. Okay, when you take the San Joaquin Valley together, all 8 of us, second in population in growth, and we're the 3rd largest group in the state if you look at us as a group. Again, we're second in the state in total miles of roads. As I told several of you yesterday, we've been working together since 1990 on our air quality issues. We work closely with the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. Our air is getting better every year. It's still not where it needs to be, but our air is getting better. These are many of the things we collaborate on, all the 8 Valley COG directors and Caltrans District 6 and District 10. I suspect most of you traveled on Highway 99 in order to get here. That is our main street in the San Joaquin Valley. It's essential to our economic success, and we appreciate the bond measure, but there's still much work to be done on Highway 99. The San Joaquin Valley COG directors disagree on several issues, but we certainly agree that goods movement is our future, and goods movement is essential to our economic success. As I mentioned yesterday, I-5 and State Route 99 aren't the only important routes in the San Joaquin Valley. East-west routes are also important. We talked about some of these things yesterday. We're not like the rest of the state. Some parts of us, they're the same, but we are much less densely populated than the rest of the state. These are our challenges. Again, one of those is the east-west routes, and I'll give you a specific example. Route 58, which goes east-west in Kern County, is the the only the only east-west all-weather route south of Interstate 80. That's a long stretch, 200-plus miles between all-weather east-west routes. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Tony. Any questions? Yes, Brad.
Good morning, and thank you. I have a question for you. The recent port congestion, I know, was particularly hard felt here in terms of getting products to market, especially when they have an expiration date. Not wasting that opportunity, our ports have formed a supply chain optimization committee and actually got permission from the Federal Maritime Commission to talk to each other. Are you all participating in those discussions? Because I'd love for you to at least be in those discussions so you can, contribute.
Commissioner Inman, the COGS are not, but I know our growers, certainly almonds are one of the biggest exports from the Central Valley, are involved in those conversations.
Okay, I'd love for you to reach out to Mike Christensen at the Port of Long Beach. He's coordinating those efforts. And I don't know if they have their meetings or webcasts, but it would be great for you all to listen in and contribute where appropriate.
Will do, Commissioner.
Mr. Ascent?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Hakimi, a couple of questions. First of all, I want to second Commissioner Inman's comments about ports. I hear complaints from some of our growers that they can't get their trucks are sitting in ports for hours at a time. And so we need congestion relief in the ports. I will welcome and encourage that discussion. Yesterday, we found out that the majority of the growth in the state of California will be in the San Joaquin Valley over the next 20 to 30 years. Are you having discussions with other COG directors and planning agencies about how transportation can feed into land use and the projected housing demands that's going to be upon us in the next 20 to 30 years?
Oh, absolutely, Commissioner Asimi. SB 375 requires all the COGs to talk to our local agencies and our neighbors about land use. Absolutely.
And we're looking at accelerated housing demand in the valley from currently 11% of the population. We're looking at heading up to 15% of the state's population by 2040. So we want to make sure the valley is ready to accommodate the new population.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hakimi. And thank you all very much for the welcome and the great information on Fresno. It's been wonderful visiting here. Next up is then report by regional agencies moderator, Renee DeVeri-Oki. Welcome, Renee.
All right, good morning, chairs, commissioners, secretary, directors. Renee DeVeri-Oki here from Sacramento Area Council of Governments on behalf of the Regional Transportation Planning Agencies today. The regional agencies met yesterday. Thank you, Fresno COG, for graciously hosting us. I'm from Fresno originally, so a little hometown pride. So our group continues to actively monitor and all the legislative efforts that are going, both for short-term and long-term solutions to funding our transportation needs. You heard a little bit from Vince about what's happening at the federal level with the 2-month patch. So we'll be watching that over the summer to see what happens and a result of apportionment that's available so we can deliver our projects. At the state level, we're watching SB 16. I hear that that's in the suspense file and will be discussed today, so we'll see what happens there. Additionally, we're paying attention to SB 321 to see how it progresses, noting the inclusion or exclusion of an urgency clause. The inclusion or exclusion of this will have an impact on allocations in 15-16, and how the bill moves forward will have a large impact on the 2016 fund estimate for the STIP, noting the difference between the programming and potential allocation capacity of 15-16. The RTPA groups are going to be getting together to look at what an allocation plan would look like and discussing our priorities. The last time that this happened was in 2009. So 6 years ago, the priorities then are a little bit different from now. So we'll be working together and then working with staff to see what that looks like. Additionally, at our meeting, we heard on the quick report on the Integrated Transportation Strategic Plan. noting that all the comments are coming up very soon. We're curious to see how this document evolves with a response to comments, and specifically in how it integrates and connects with projects that are going to be receiving funding through the ITIP. We also heard from ARB on plans for moving forward in the coming months with a sustainable freight initiative. We hope that the planning efforts are complementary and supportive of other current planning efforts, and we look forward to the opportunity to engage with ARB on these efforts. Finally, June 1st is almost here. ATP Cycle 2 applications will be turned in, so we were curious to see how the application process and review will be going. We're glad to hear that there's lots of volunteers to review these applications, and we're also grateful for the opportunity as RTPAs to be able to weigh into the process a little bit early and flag anything that we need to. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, questions? Very good. Thank you very much for your report. Next up, Jerry Barton, Rural Counties Task Force Chair.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to start by thanking Director Kempton for attending our May meeting. We appreciate the update he provided regarding the very interesting legislative proposals being considered here in California. We're very excited about the prospect of a new fund source for maintenance in the form of Senate Bill 16. We have written a letter to support this bill in concept, and today you will receive a presentation from Margot Yap from NCE, and she'll provide a brief overview of our recently completed Streets and Roads Needs Assessment, which clearly demonstrates the tremendous needs for streets and roads funding in the rural areas of California. We hope that SB 16 will retain its maintenance focus, and we hope that it will be tied to performance measures for pavement maintenance. Today you will also receive a presentation on the draft Interregional Strategic Transportation Plan, or ITSP. The ITSP has a decided emphasis on goods movement, and while we recognize that this is important to rural areas and the state of California, it's also important to realize that we have interregional needs for people moving from rural areas to urban areas on the state system. Rural areas are also highly impacted by recreation and tourism traffic. A recently completed San Francisco Bay Area to Tahoe study indicated that 62% of the daily traffic volume at the intersections of State Route 49 and US 50 was recreational travel as opposed to commuter travel. So neither of these routes are considered in the as a priority interregional corridor in the ITSP. So there was a lot of discussion about that at our recent meeting. Agriculture is also of consideration to some extent in those needs. Lastly, we are working on a rural performance measures project. This is very similar to the recently completed SANDAG analysis that was done, and we are looking to develop performance monitoring metrics that are applicable to rural RTPAs and MPOs. It's been said that what gets measured gets funded, so we hope to put those metrics to the test and to work in rural areas. We hope that these metrics will be considered for inclusion in the 2016 STIP. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you for the time today.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Questions? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for your report. Next, number 12, our report by Self-Help Counties Coalition Chair Diane Steinhausen. Doesn't look at all like Diane. It looks like my cousin is coming to the podium.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Cousin Lucy, and fellow commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to fill in for our Chair, Diane Steinhausen, who couldn't be here today. I won't go over what my colleagues have said previously, but rather try and focus a little bit on what the self-help counties have been doing here in Sacramento principally. And some of the things that are pending on some of their local jurisdictions. As many of you probably have heard, we have a number of counties who are looking at either extending or going for new self-help measures. Potentially, we have more than 5 that are looking currently at doing that. There's a process that's taking place and evaluations that are being made and calculations of success So as we progress in the year, we probably will have more information on which counties are committed to that process, but there's a rigorous review that's taking place, and many of them are working their way through those metrics to decide whether or not they're going to be moving forward with a new measure or an extension. As you all know, those dollars that are generated at the local level are a critical funding source for the state, so it's very important they take the process of looking at renewals very seriously. So we're going through those processes currently, and we'll have more to report as the year goes on. I wanted to mention quickly AB 194, Self-Help Counties sponsored tolling legislation that we are pleased is still progressing through the legislature. We're hopeful it's going to be coming off the suspense file in the Assembly today. We're working very closely with Secretary Kelly. I anticipate we'll likely have, I'm assuming, a few minor changes in the department to make sure that it's a policy that works for the state and their local and regional partners. We're looking and working with the MPOs to make sure it works for them. But I'm excited that we've made great progress, in my opinion, and hopefully looking to work with Secretary Kelly and Director Dougherty on making sure that it's got all the elements that they'd like to see in that policy. And I think that we've been very pleased with the process and cooperation of that program. Road user charge, we have a number of members participating in that process. We're actively engaged in providing comments and hopefully are adding value to that program. I think that the self-help counties realize that the diminishing revenues of the gas tax are going to drive us to something like that. So we're actively trying to make sure that the program is going to deliver what we all hope as far as revenue and capture the users that we need to that are impacting the system to make it an effective program. So we're appreciative of your efforts here to make sure that that program's progressing. We're supportive of the efforts to improve and expedite that timeline. We think that's a good move, and the request, I think, in the budget was appropriate. We're very supportive of that. SB 16, we're actively supporting. We're looking to make sure that there's discussions amongst all the parties so that we can have some political resolution in the legislature on that, and then present it hopefully to the governor and the voters eventually to look to address some of the funding that the self-help counties can't fulfill. You know, we need to have a healthy state that can be a partner in those funding obligations. Lastly, I just would mention that the Focus on the Future conference seems to come quickly every year. It's going to be in Orange County this year in November. We're currently putting together panels and would welcome any suggestions from commissioners or others that would like to see discussions at the conference. We think it's a good venue to vet new ideas and to discuss them in a good forum. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Questions, comments? Great. Thanks very much for your report.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. All right, we're moving, jumping a little bit in the agenda, and we're going to go to the information calendar in order to, I think we're going to try to accommodate some of our folks that will be joining us on the phone. And so take a look at item number 22, our information reports on
Yes.
allocation. Stephen Mahler.
Yes, Commissioners, the next 8 agenda items, 22 through 29, are information items deemed by staff not to raise any issues. The individual items will not be presented unless a commissioner specifically requests.
Very good. Any questions, comments? Next up,
Consent calendar.
consent calendar. Oh, yes. So we do need to have a motion to approve.
Well, not, before we go there.
Do you want to keep going?
Before we go to a motion, I need to present the changes to the consent calendar.
Thank you, Stephen.
The next 31 agenda items, 30 through 60, are consent calendar items. The following changes need to be noted. Item number 40 is being withdrawn. These are 13 resolutions of necessity. We do not have a minimum number of commissioners necessary to vote on these items. With these changes, staff recommends that the consent calendar be approved.
There you go.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmetti. Motion. Second by Ms. Inman. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Madam Chair, I would suggest that because we have folks on the phone, we should ask them directly. So Commissioner Tavoloni, who I think is
Mr.
present.
Tavoloni?
Aye.
And you heard the presentation on the consent calendar and the changes to it? Thank you very much. We have an aye vote for Mr. Tavaloni. Very good. Next up, I think we're now jumping to item 68, page 11 of our agenda.
I believe, Madam Chair, we're going to go to number 13 now.
Are we doing 13? No?
No,
I have a note.
no, we're going to item 68.
Not this good.
And this is amendments for notice. Laurel Jansen.
Okay, yeah, well, you want to do all of the amendments for notice? We'll start with 68. All right, Commissioners, items 68 through 86, these are all STIP amendments for notice. Staff has identified very few minor issues that we will be working on with the department. We expect that all of these will come back in June and be placed on the consent calendar. Do you have any questions about any of these specific amendments?
So if you could clarify for the chair, items 68 through
86.
86.
We can adjourn now?
We're getting close.
It says adjourn.
I know. Well, we have a few things that we skipped right over here. But if there's no questions from items 68 to 86 from our commissioners, information items, okay. That's it. And so next up, again, we're kind of, what would you like to do, Mr. Kimpton?
So those are information items.
Right.
So now you have a choice, Madam Chair, if we want to take a brief break until Commissioner Guardino joins us, or we could go back to item 13.
Okay.
This is Kathleen Cook on behalf of Commissioner Gardino.
Yes.
I've just dialed in to the call from his desk, and he should be arriving shortly.
Very good. Then why don't we take a 10-minute break and we'll reconvene when Commissioner Guardino hits our phone. So
Thank you very much.
10 minutes, we'll be back at 9:45.